Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports here for our daily live news roundup. So for today, we're going to get straight into the news. I see I do have a few of you all watching alongside with me. Please do be sure to drop a like and let me know where you're watching from. So straight into this first news article today. Christian Horner takes aim at short-termist nature of rival Formula One team principals. Christian Horner has said this generation of Formula One team managers are more short-termist than their predecessors, focusing only on their little area rather than the sport as a whole. Having been in Formula One for 18 years, Horner has shared the paddock with a number of different team principals and the many personalities that they bring. Starting at the time with the likes of Bernie Ecclestone, Max Mosley, Jean Todt, Ron Dennis, and Flavio Briatore, with big names in the sport. Horner has seen Formula One go through quite the evolution. Christian Horner suggests that the current crop of Formula One bosses are unlike the old. Horner is the sole team principal left standing from Red Bull's debut year in 2005, with the role of boss dramatically different than it was in those days. Having had a foot in both camps, Horner remarked that the modern generation of Formula One bosses are very short-termist and focused solely on their little area. I had the privilege of seeing up close how some legendary leaders were operating when I first came into the sport, he exclusively told PlanetF1.com. Bernie Ecclestone and Max Mosley were running the business very tightly. But then there was Ron Dennis, there was Jean Todt, there was Flavio Briatore. Big personalities and big characters. I suppose the difference between now and then is that we are all quite entrepreneurial, and that the thoughts of the bigger picture, whereas now you see a bunch of managers in the room that are very short-termist with only focus on their little area. So that's been an interesting change. Since he arrived in the sport, Horner has gone on to become one of the most successful team principals in Formula One history, but insisted he did not style himself on any of the predecessors, choosing to instead use the skills he learned as an owner of the Formula 3000 team, Arden. There's nobody that I modelled myself on, the 49-year-old said. I had a lot of admiration for them, whether it was Ron or Frank or what Jean Todt did, Flavio in his flamboyant way as well. They're all very different, but one commonality that they all had was that they would do the best that they could for their team and assemble the right group of people together. So that is, of course, what Christian Horner is going on to say there. Nothing too crazy, of course. We know that he has been around for quite some time in Formula One. And yeah, glad to see, though, that he is still in Formula One, of course, and should be for quite some time to come. I see we have some regulars marked there in the comment section. Taya as well. Thank you for joining me. Please do be sure to vote in that poll. Currently, no one's voted for anyone other than Red Bull. The question has been, who do you think will win in Monza? And 100% for the votes going to Red Bull right now. Moving on from that first article, staying with Red Bull though, Red Bull chief slams the door on his Formula One star joining Max Verstappen on this Formula One star. Helmut Marko appeared to close the door on the prospect of Alex Albon ever returning to Red Bull, as he has had his chance. The British Thai racer was still very new to Formula One when he was promoted to the top team from sister outfit AlphaTauri, and he was given more of a chance than the man he replaced mid-season, Pierre Gasly. But Albon still couldn't make it stick. He did enough in the second half of that 2019 campaign to earn a full season as Max Verstappen's teammate, but despite a couple of podiums, he was replaced and spent the following year on the sidelines. His Formula One future in doubt. Aided by Red Bull, he landed a race seat with Williams for the last season, and was very impressive, earning a new multi-year deal with the team. And he has built on that with some more very impressive performances so far this season. His form has attracted the interest of other teams, including the two who tried but failed to sign him for this season. Paddock rumours suggest he is on Ferrari's list of potential replacements if one of its drivers were to leave in the next couple of years, but it seems a return to Red Bull is not on the cards. Long-serving advisor Helmut Marko appears to have confirmed as much. The Austrian heaped praise upon Albon, but suggested his team is not interested in living in the past and would prefer to consider other options. He said, Max's teammate has a very tough and difficult life. Albon has already had his chance. He has improved remarkably since then, but at the moment there is no driver who is on Max's level. Albon recently admitted he is flattered by the links to the top teams, but reaffirmed his commitment to Williams. He said, "Good rumours are always nice. I think it just underscores that this year has been going well so far. I'm happy to hear those things. Of course it's just rumours, but I'm not complaining." In another recent interview, he added, "The focus is on Williams and making sure we bring this team up to the front. And then let's see what happens. I want to go forward and the team want to progress. I'm sure the team also in some ways understands if there's another avenue to go down, they would not hold me back." So certainly not what we wanted to hear for Alex Albon. We would love to see him in that Red Bull seat, but of course, Helmut Marko saying there that it is not a possibility for them, and we aren't really going to be seeing him in that seat in the current future. Still sticking with Red Bull, lots of news about them here today. This was almost my title for today, but it is a little bit too clickbaity. Formula One rumours, there are already agreements about a separation between Perez and Red Bull. Sergio Perez's days at Red Bull are numbered, and Ralf Schumacher believes Helmut Marko's not warm-hearted way of dealing with Perez is to blame for the driver's slump. Just reading the comments there quickly, Mark saying Albon must get a proper seat. Certainly we want to see him in a proper seat for the future. Hopefully he'll get either another long-term contract with Williams, because they seem to be doing quite a lot better at the moment, or maybe he could get a seat in another top team. We'll have to wait and see though. Carrying on with Sergio Perez's article. Sergio Perez's days at Red Bull are numbered, and Ralf Schumacher believes Helmut Marko's not warm-hearted way of dealing with Perez is to blame for the driver's slump. Perez's position at Red Bull has been tentative of late, with the Mexican driver falling out of the championship race early in the season when he strung together 5 miserable qualifying sessions. And with his teammate Max Verstappen going on a charge, that meant even when Perez was back inside the pole position shootout, momentum was and remains to this day firmly with the Dutchman. Scoring 96 points since Miami, the first race in Verstappen's 9-race winning streak, to the Dutchman's 220, Perez trails his teammate by 139 points in the championship, and is, as Marko and Christian Horner agree, out of the title fight. But that's all they agree on, as Horner has insisted Perez will be our driver in 2024. Well, while Marko says nothing is 100% certain in Formula One, and that there are always performance-related situations somewhere that need to be discussed. And it's the Red Bull Motorsport advisor's comment that Schumacher is leaning towards as fact. Sergio Perez once again made a mistake when he drove into the barriers at the entrance to the pits, and this action also resulted in a penalty that cost him second place in the end. The 6-time Grand Prix winner wrote in his post-race Sky Deutschland column, "I think his days at Red Bull are numbered. Dr. Helmut Marko is not exactly known for his warm-hearted way of dealing with Perez. I think that Perez as a guy can't deal with that so well. That's how I explain these serious mistakes." Perez looked very grumpy, disappointed, and also absent all weekend. I think that there were already agreements about a separation after the end of the season. This would certainly be against what Sergio Perez, Christian Horner, and Helmut Marko have been saying. They all do believe that he does have still a race seat for the end of the season and next season, but we never really know what is going to happen in Formula One. Yeah, very, very interesting to see, though, that there is a bit of a parenting crisis, as we spoke about yesterday, at Red Bull, with Christian Horner saying one thing, Helmut Marko saying another thing. And yeah, we don't really know what is going to happen with the likes of Sergio Perez in the future. So we'll have to really wait and watch as to what happens there. But Sergio Perez also goes on to explain why he has been a step or two behind while adapting to a driving style with a developed RB19. Red Bull driver Sergio Perez has opened up on his efforts to rediscover the eye-catching form he displayed in the early stages of the 2023 season, admitting that the developments to the RB19 sometimes didn't really suit me and left him needing to work harder. Perez started the year with 2 pole positions and 2 wins in 5 events to shadow teammate Max Verstappen in the driver's standings, only for qualifying struggles and a general lack of confidence to take hold and derail his championship challenge. In a Sky Sports Formula One interview conducted by Formula One strategist Bernie Collins, whom he previously worked with at McLaren and Force India, Perez shared some more details about his adaptation to the Red Bull over the last 2.5 seasons and how it is still a work in progress. There are a lot of things that are so different, Perez explained. How you look after tyres, for example, is one of the biggest things. How you drive is completely different. You are able to do things that with a Force India you cannot do, or you cannot even think of doing. Pushed on whether he's continuing to learn and improve, the 6-time Grand Prix winner added, "Yeah, the progression is there. For a driver, it's really difficult to be adapting the car instead of just the things coming naturally. The last few races, I've been like a step or 2 behind, and always thinking consciously how I have to drive the car. Sometimes with how the car has been developed, it doesn't really suit me as much, so I have to work harder on it." But I think in Hungary and Belgium, for example, those have been good. Standing on the podium, hopefully we can keep that momentum going, because at the end of the day, we've got a great race car. Perez also offered some more insights into the aforementioned challenging run, starting with a heavy Q1 crash in Monaco that saw him lose significant ground to Max Verstappen in just a handful of races. Asked about the pressure at the start of the season and how it compared to previous experiences, he said, "It was different this time, obviously, because, we started the year so high. You're thinking you are a championship contender, you won 2 races. Then all of a sudden, you feel like, this weekend doesn't feel like it did before. So you're losing confidence because you're not fully confident with the car. In Formula One, if you're not fully confident with a car at 250 kilometers an hour into a corner, then you are doubting a little bit more. And that's really what happened in those moments. It would have been easy to sit back and say, it's too hard for me, and so on, but at the end of the day, you just have to get on with it. Like I said, I just look forward to keeping this momentum going with the team." Despite his tricky spell, Perez remains second in the Drivers' Championship after 13 races, albeit 138 points behind Verstappen, while Red Bull set 258 points clear of Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. Well, Sergio Perez still remains quite confident that he can bounce back from his bit of a slump, but we'll have to wait and see what he can do in Monza. Of course, he was robbed from that second place position because of his mistakes in Zandvoort, losing it into turn 1 in those tricky conditions, and then hitting into the pit lane, losing even more time, and getting that penalty, resulting in him finishing in 4th position. Yeah, well, let's see what you're all saying there in the comment section. Well, nothing too much there, but let's get a different poll going up. Do you think that Sergio Perez is going to lose his race seat? If I can type here. There we go. Mark just saying that Perez will lose his seat at the end of 2024. That I certainly don't have any doubt of. But I'm more wanting to know what's going to happen with him next year because, yeah, there's a lot of talk about what could happen for that seat. Of course, we want another competitive driver in that seat. If Perez isn't going to be able to challenge Verstappen, then I think it should go to someone who is going to be able to. Because, yeah, I think that is only really fair. So moving on though, away from Red Bull finally, sorry to all of those who don't necessarily want to hear about Red Bull all the time, but we're moving on to a little bit of a chat about McLaren. McLaren are still vulnerable despite fashioning an urgent Monza wing upgrade. The McLaren Formula One team is still likely to be vulnerable at the end of this weekend's Italian Grand Prix, despite fashioning an updated lower drag wing that it previously acknowledged was urgently needed in Spa. Lando Norris found it impossible to race other cars at the Belgium Grand Prix before the summer break, as McLaren's rear wing meant he was extremely exposed on the long Spa straights. McLaren had been prioritizing the development and production of major upgrades, which transformed the car's overall performance and isolated development like a low-drag wing. It acknowledged during the Spa weekend, and again after that difficult race, that urgent work was required to find a better solution for Monza, which is an even more straight-line speed-sensitive track. The mandatory two-week shutdown during the summer break meant that McLaren had limited time to put a plan into action, and that means the type of bespoke Monza special wing that some teams might produce or have already run at Spa seems extremely unlikely. Team principal Andrea Stella had already hinted at McLaren's solution would be to modify an existing wing, as he has effectively confirmed that, although there was also a redesign required to be able to do it. "We are making some adjustments," said Stella. "We needed to urgently activate some actions to find some top speed, because Monza is going to set some challenges, similar to what we had at Spa. There will be some modifications which hopefully will allow us to not only be quick in terms of lap time, but also raceable in terms of top speed." Asked by the race at the Dutch Grand Prix last weekend whether he expected a bespoke Monza wing or an existing one that McLaren had physically trimmed, Norris smiled and said, "No comment." When Stella was asked by the race what action had been taken, he confirmed, "We will make modifications to existing wings. But in order to make this level of modifications, we needed to make the wings from a construction point of view to be able to actually be modified like they will need to be modified for Monza. Gosh. It will be a combination of changes on top of the wings we had in Spa. Given the long start-finish straight at Monza, that may not be enough, and Norris gave an air of trepidation regarding McLaren's prospects for a race it won 2 years ago. Asked if he is expecting it to be a tough weekend, Norris replied, "Yes. There's been so much focus on trying to get the car we have now, which is completely the correct decision to have done. So much focus and time spent on creating this. There's some things we are quite far behind at. But I'd happily take 80% good races and 20% bad races rather than the vice versa. We know it, we admit it, which is why I think it is a good thing. But we know we are in for a pretty tough race." One benefit for McLaren is that it has been able to switch development focus to other items like the rear wings, and did introduce a new one at Zandvoort last weekend. While it will be no use for Monza, it is a slightly lower downforce and drag option that is a contender to be used from Singapore onwards. McLaren heads to what is likely to be one of its weakest remaining tracks of the season, off the back of a clear missed opportunity at Zandvoort last weekend. Norris continued the strong form McLaren has showed post-upgrade by qualifying second, but McLaren bungled when the switch to intermediate tyres when a sudden downforce happened on the opening lap of the Grand Prix. The team denied Norris's request to change quickly and kept him out on slicks until the end of lap 3, thinking the shower would pass and that it would be better to survive on the softs to avoid unnecessary pit stops. Norris was also very vocal on the team radio as to why they were doing this and wanted to come straight into the pits. He did eventually make that switch and became a lot happier after that when he was on the correct tyres. But yes, hopefully we will get the McLarens being a lot more competitive this race weekend, because we want to see more teams fighting for those top positions. Mark saying here in the comment section, so McLaren will be even faster this weekend. Red Bull, watch out. I certainly think they could be quite competitive in the qualifying sessions. Whether they're going to be competitive in the race, we'll have to wait and see. I'm certainly hoping there will be. And let's ask you guys in the comment section, do you think that McLaren will be competitive? I almost said Spa. We are in Monza, not Spa. That is now up. So let's just see if there's any more comments from you guys. No, nothing. But we'll carry on nonetheless. Moving on to an article about Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz believes that Ferrari will be challenging for a podium at Monza. The Scuderia had a poor weekend at last week's Dutch Grand Prix. However, the Spaniard believes that Scuderia can get back on track at their home race in Monza. Carlos Sainz believes Ferrari will be challenging for a podium finish at their home race at Monza this weekend after a disappointing weekend at Zandvoort. The Maranello team returns to their home race in Monza for the 2023 Italian Grand Prix. The team has not found success at their home race since Charles Leclerc's victory at the 2019 Italian Grand Prix. The Scuderia are heading into their home race after a disappointing weekend at the last weekend's Dutch Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz managed to reach the checkered flag in fifth, whereas Leclerc had to retire his car due to floor damage. Both drivers complained about the unpredictability of the SF23, with Leclerc crashing in qualifying, as both drivers complained of having zero idea of how the car behaved when on the limit. Ferrari reserve driver Robert Schwartzman even complained about the loose rear end of his Ferrari SF23 in practice 1 session when he filled in for Carlos Sainz. Changes to the Ferrari car for 2024 are in the pipeline, with the Scuderia having regressed a lot from the start of the season due to the regulations. They were fighting for victories against Red Bull at the start of the 2022 season. However, since then, the Maranello team has not been able to develop their car efficiently compared to their rival teams. Ferrari have made it clear, though, that their 2024 car will be a completely new concept, with the Italian team being confident that their issues with the SF23 are fully understood. However, changes cannot be made to the car this year, so the team must persevere with their current car for the rest of the season. Carlos Sainz has spoken to Sky Sports regarding the matter, believing that the team has understood the issues with the SF23. However, he has admitted that the team have to ride it out for the rest of the 23 season. Don't get me wrong, he said, we have started to understand what it is with the handling, but there is very little margin to correct it now that the car is built and the car is pretty much done and developed. We know we need to change things though for next year, but for this year, circuits like Zandvoort and with windy conditions and high downforce tracks, we are simply going to be slow. The general feeling about the team though is that the Scuderia perform better on low downforce tracks. Last weekend's trip to Zandvoort, Sainz was Ferrari's quickest qualifier, qualifying 1.1 seconds behind pole sitter Max Verstappen. Zandvoort is a high downforce track with the amount of fast corners. Sainz has admitted he was happy to be able to fight with the faster cars throughout the Dutch Grand Prix. The Spaniard believed that the Italian team had the 6th quickest car that weekend. We were fighting with the cars that were a lot quicker than us the whole weekend, Sainz said. It was just a whole race of fighting through, getting the cause right. Our pace was nowhere near that to earn 5th place. It means we executed the race well though. We did everything well. I'm happy with the result, not happy with how much I struggled and how difficult it was out there for us. However, due to a podium finish in Spa, Sainz believes that Ferrari will be able to challenge for a podium finish at the team's home race in Monza. For Monza, I expect things to be better because in Spa we were a lot quicker than what we were in Zandvoort. And I think honestly, at low downforce tracks, we should be better and we should be back to our normal positions. Ferrari are fourth in the Constructors' Championship. The Scuderia are behind rivals Mercedes and Aston Martin in the championship, showing a disappointing season so far. Do you think that Ferrari will be able to fight for podium positions though in Monza this race weekend? Mark saying Ferrari, challenge. They are quite a challenge, I suppose. Yeah, lots of disappointment and not necessarily any more confidence in Ferrari. I mean, no one really ever believes that they're going to be able to challenge anymore. I mean, it's really sad because we have had a really competitive Ferrari last season. Then they all just seem to lose their momentum going on to the race weekend in I think it was France, and then from then onwards their season just really unraveled, and it's been really disappointing. We want to see them being able to fight it out again, and we want to see them on the back on podiums and race wins. So hopefully we will get them returning to their pace and their form next season, with them hopefully going to a completely different concept. I see though that our McLaren poll has said that they are going to be competitive, and Mark saying Ferrari missed the V10 and V12 engines. I think everyone misses those V10 and V12 engines, to be very honest with you. Moving over to our last three articles now, Alfa Romeo have revealed a striking Formula One livery for the Italian Grand Prix. The Alfa Romeo team have unveiled a special livery for the Italian Grand Prix to celebrate the Alfa 33 Stradale. For those of you who do not know, Alfa Romeo has also released a new road car, a very limited road car, a supercar by the looks of it. We don't know too much about it, but it is an absolute beauty based on their historic 33 Stradale road car from the 90s, if I remember correctly. The striking one-off look featuring gold accents and highlights on an Italian flag tricolore and adorns the engine. The striking one-off look features gold accents and highlights on an Italian flag tricolore that adorns the engine cover. Will be used throughout the Monza weekend by Alfa Romeo duo Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. The Sauber Run squad, which has also run a handful of sponsor-led livery tweaks this year, will end its Formula One partnership with Alfa Romeo at the conclusion of the 2023 season. The Italian Grand Prix effectively marking the Alliance's last home race. To celebrate the occasion, the team has opted to pay tribute to the launch of Alfa Romeo's latest car, the 33 Stradale, which has launched at the Alfa Romeo Museum near Milan, 56 years on from the original launch of the car. As we approached our home race in Monza, it's a pleasure to unveil this incredible livery, a true tribute not only to the 33 Stradale, but also to the Alfa Romeo as a whole, and to the country it hails from, Italy. Sauber boss Alessandro Aluni Bravo said, or Bravi. The Formula One team ends its Alfa Romeo partnership at the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, as it prepares to become the factory Audi outfit when the German engine manufacturer enters the series in 2026. Alfa Romeo has expressed interest in staying in the Formula One paddock, with reports emerging recently linking it to a sponsorship deal with the Haas Formula One team. Last June, Haas Formula One boss Günther Steiner indicated that the team was open to joining up with Alfa Romeo, but no formal talks had begun. Haas already has a long-term title sponsorship arrangement in place with MoneyGram, and Steiner said that any occasion with Alfa Romeo would have to accommodate that. Alfa Romeo will hope the new look gives it a boost on the track, having failed to score any points since the Canadian Grand Prix back in June, and it's stuck in 9th place in the Formula One World Constructors Championship, only ahead of AlphaTauri. Last time out at the Dutch Grand Prix, Williams made a strong stride in the battle of the low runners as Alex Albon took 8th place to push the British squad 4 points clear of Haas and 7th in the driver's standings. We will have to wait and see whether this new look for Alfa Romeo does allow it to get a little bit further up the grid. It certainly is an absolutely beautiful looking livery, and yeah, I hope to see it doing quite well out in Monza. As Mark says there in the comment section, the Alfa Romeo livery is beautiful. Moving on to our second to last article here, with a new Formula One and FIA clampdown on rules. So the Formula One teams face a flexi wing clampdown as tricks are revealed. Formula One teams face a fresh clampdown on flexi wings after this weekend's Italian Grand Prix. Motorsport.com can reveal, with the FIA moving to counter tricks it believes are illegal. Let's find it. As first reported earlier this month, the FIA has been taking a close look at flexible wings over the first half of the season, as it believes teams have been pushing the boundaries in terms of what is allowed. It is understood that several teams, including Aston Martin, were advised to make changes to their front wing designs around the time of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in a bid to ensure that they did not fall foul of any rule breaches. But as a part of a ramped-up effort to stop any attempt at getting around the regulations, the FIA has now issued a formal technical directive outlining what it believes are unacceptable designs with regards to flexible bodywork. In Technical Directive 18, a copy of what has been seen on Motorsports.com and was sent to teams ahead of the Dutch Grand Prix weekend, the FIA states that it believes outfits are exploiting regulations of purposefully designed, localized compliance, plus relative motion between adjacent components to deliver a significant boost to aerodynamic performance. In plain English, that just means teams are exploiting a loophole in the regulations which allows for bendy wings to gain a performance advantage. So it states that any design that operates like this is in breach of Article 3.2.2 of the Formula One's technical regulations, which states that any components that influence a car's aerodynamic performance must be rigidly secure and immobile with respect to their frame of reference defined in Article 3.3. Furthermore, these components must produce a uniform, solid, hard, continuous, impervious surface under all circumstances. The FIA has been prompted into action because it believes that teams are exploiting sophisticated systems that rotate and flex front and rear wing elements in ways that cannot be detected through their regular load tests. It has made it clear that any assembly designs that exploit the localized compliance or degrees of freedom are not permitted. The FIA duly outlined 4 key design elements that it considers to be in breach of the technical rules, but suggests there may be other ideas at play that could be illegal as well. The teams are stipulated that they have to produce all of their drawings in regards to these regulations and rule breaks by the end of September. So they are wing elements that can translate vertically, longitudinally, or laterally relative to the bodywork that they are fixed to. Number 2 is wing elements that can rotate relatively to the bodywork that they are fixed to, such as rotating around one fixing, designs that utilize elastomeric fillets, compliant sections of the wing profile, or thin flexible laminate at a junction that can either distort, deflect out of plane, or twist to permit localized deflection relative to the bodywork the component is attached to, and it just goes on and on and on, and I'm sure all of you do not want to keep hearing all of these technical regulations. Mark says, Aston Martin will be fuming. FIA is just ruining creative engineering. Yes, they are, but of course they are trying to as well get racing a little bit more close between all of the teams and trying to close any loopholes that they do go and find. So that is what the FIA are trying to clamp down on at the moment. It's very interesting to see that these teams are finding all of these very, very creative loopholes in the regulations. And yeah, we'll see whether some teams take a bit of a dive in performance due to these regulation changes. Moving on to our final article for today, though. Mass's legal team warns of UK High Court action over FIA FOM delays. Felipe Massa's legal team anticipates filing a UK High Court action as early as next week if the FIA and Formula One management delay responding further to its 2008 Formula One title claims. As originally reported by Motorsport.com, Massa's lawyers wrote to the FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem and Formula One management CEO Stefano Domenicali earlier this month with a letter before setting out the details of the Brazilian driver's legal pursuit to rectify him losing the 2008 Formula One World Championship. According to the document, Massa's legal team alleged that the Brazilian was the victim of a conspiracy over the Crashgate conspiracy at the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. It urged that the FIA and Formula One management deliberately acted to avoid a scandal over what happened in Singapore, despite being told of the cheating affair early enough to have taken action. Massa's push for legal remedy was prompted by both an interview with Bernie Ecclestone claiming that the matter was brushed under the carpet and an archive chat with former Formula One race director Charlie Whiting, who revealed he was told about Nelson Piquet Jr.'s deliberate Singapore crash at that year's Brazilian Grand Prix season finale. It was suggested that Massa's losing the championship as a result of what's happened in Singapore had cost him millions in income as well as morale and reputational damages. Motorsport.com has learned that both the FIA and Formula One management have responded to Massa's original letter. but both have indicated that in the wake of Formula One summer break period, with personnel being away, it was impossible to provide a formal response to the individual claims in the short term, so needed more time. The stance has not gone down well with Massa's team, who have ramped up the urgency to get answers from the FIA and Formula One management over the matter. Motorsport.com can reveal that Massa's legal team has now replied to both the FIA and Formula One management and told them that it does not consider a potential 3-month delay for the matter to be dealt with as responsible or reasonable. The letter copies of which have been seen by Motorsport.com argue that work on a response should have been done promptly upon receipt of the letter before claim, and summer absences should not have prevented that. It further states that it does not view potential delay in dealing with Massa's request for answers as acceptable. The letters go on to state that if a formal response is not made by Friday next week, the 8th of September, then it expects the matter to go to the UK High Court to force the answers required. An open-ended timeframe for a response is not consistent with the pre-action protocol added each letter. Please provide your response by 4 p.m. on the 8th of September 2023, failing which we anticipate being instructed to file claims in the UK High Court. Massa's legal team wants a fast response from both the FIA and FOM because it is poised to launch legal action in other jurisdictions, but feels that it is better to do so only once it has gotten the answers to its questions from the FIA and FOM. With the matter going legal, neither Formula One management nor the FIA wished to make a formal comment on the situation when approached by Motorsport.com. An FIA spokesperson said the FIA acknowledges the receipt of the correspondence from representatives of Mr. Felipe Massa, but the matter is under review and we will not be providing a comment at this stage. Things are certainly turning ugly with Felipe Massa and Formula One possibly going into legal action over the 2008 title scandal there. So we will have to wait and see what does happen with this scandal, and I'm sure that it could end up in court if the Formula One group does keep delaying their response to Felipe Massa's legal team. Nonetheless, that is it from me here today. Thank you very much for joining me. It has been quite a long one today, but there has been a lot of news to round up for you guys, and we are still looking forward to this race weekend in Monza. It is going to be a very exciting race weekend with hopefully a bunch of teams being able to compete for that title win in Monza. Nonetheless, though, thank you very much for joining me. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. We have now hit 1,000 subscribers, so thank you very much for all of you who have achieved that. I have been Reece here.